Today we have Yogesh, Anshul. Both are from two different backgrounds. More into corporate world, corporate culture. From a design point of view, you have seen a different world altogether. And then we have Anshul. He's more from a perspective of business, like he's doing business since long in design space. So you have a different perspective. So I think we all gonna learn a lot from both of you. I hope that this session is going to be very exciting for the people who really want to open up their studio and also want to manage their team and how to do the design process to make design meaningful, but at same point of time, like also from a business point of view, it is like more profitable for the organization. I think we can talk about that. Or what do you say about it?
Hey, while you're still here, have you registered for India's largest designathon? We're coming to your city, and this is your chance to shine as a designer on a national platform. Click on the link to register.
Sure. Yogesh, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, as you were asking, like, what kind of design processes we follow at corporate, like, I'll rather answer that with the journey I had so far. So, my journey actually started while I was a artist, and to be honest, I did not even knew what is is there any difference between art and design. I used to consider these both to be a similar thing. If someone asks me what is this, I will say art someday. Maybe I'll say design someday.
Yeah.
But I did not had a difference like what exactly this means. But having said that, later in the time when I started with the art college, which was my undergraduation, later in like third semester or something, I got to realize the difference between art and design. And I want to I'll get to the part of design process,
Yeah.
but it is a interesting connect from that to design process, like this journey to design process. And art is basically about, it is my creation. I make something, and it is very subjective. Someone will like it, someone might not like it, but it is my thought process. That's the end of the story. Whereas in design, it's like we are making things not for us. It is for people who are going to use it, right? And I take a very simple example. If you go forward and I'll ask you to make, if you want to achieve fitness, what will you do? Like I'm asking you, if you want to achieve fitness, what kind of activity will you do?
Yeah, I have to wake up in the morning, I have to do some exercise, I have to eat.
What kind of exercise will achieve fitness for you?
For me, it depends on my body type, I guess.
Let's say for you, it means yoga.
Yeah, for me, it can be yoga. Yeah.
For Anshul, what do you think for you is the right thing to do achieve fitness?
I think playing sports is definitely one of them.
Right.
Maybe a gym couple of days in a week, not regularly, but sports is something that we can do regularly and we will stay fit.
Right. So for me, what I got to understand is to achieve fitness, which is the design goal, there are multiple routes which can be done. You are coming from one school of thought, he's coming from another school of thought, there could be a different school of thought for me. But all of them will achieve the same goal, which is achieving fitness is the goal. So for me, it is irrespective of big organization or any small design studio. End of the day, it is about how you approach the problem and you understand the right problem to solve for. So that is what, according to me, design process definition starts with.
Cool.
Yeah.
I might have a bit contrary opinion on this. Like, I don't generally differentiate art and design, though there is a lot of debate, always goes on around this. Like, art is something that is very personal to you, design is something you're kind of solving, like Yogesh mentioned. But I don't think whenever we are kind of doing any kind of artistic work, or maybe whenever we are kind of doing any kind of designing work, we do try to put our thought process into that. We do try to leave behind our marks in that. But at the end of the day, we are doing it for people. At the end of the day, we are trying to maybe showcase it to the people. Even for the art also, a great artist, you only understand that he's a great artist because everyone appreciates it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously there's a subjective angle to it. Maybe every artist might not be liked by everyone, but it's more like majority of them are liked by majority of them, right? So you know that this is a good art. This is something that done when no one ever thought of this. They kind of thought out of the box and kind of created something way out of the line, and everyone kind of like, yeah, this is something very strange, very new to all of our society, culture and stuff like that, and they kind of appreciated, and that particular individual got recognition, right? So again, I believe that design is also the same, right? uh Talking about like design from an agency background, and though I'm not very much sure about how it's happened in product companies or the corporate world, but when you talk about agencies, every now and then you get a different problem statement. One day you might be working with the beauty brands, another day you might be working with a fitness brand. One day you might be working with the D2C, another day you
Yeah, as an agency,
working
there are a
with-
lot of different type of
yeah,
work that
you
comes
yourself
in.
running agency,
Yeah.
you must be aware of this. Like every now and then you're gonna stumble upon something new.
Something out of
And
it.
that's the craziest thing that I've like gone through. Like even my team, when I kind of throw a new problem statement that they are not aware of, I think that's the kick, that's the whole game of design, what I particularly like it.
Mhm.
Design as a whole, it's all about exploring creativity for me personally. I do have the business angle to it, but it's something personal to me, and I kind of really enjoy to kind of have doing something on some days and doing totally different thing on the other days, and that's the crazy part.
Yeah, I can imagine I'm also running a design studio, so I can see from where you're coming from, because when you are working for different customer from different domain for different type of work, and you need a good mixture of people all together to run everything with the same team. So basically, most of the time, what we try to do with as an agency perspective or studio perspective, that we want to make every individual become like all rounder.
Yeah.
They should not focus on one thing,
True.
but basically they should focus on every different touch points of design, so that they can understand the whole holistic perspective, and then they pursue for the work on it. And that's the fundamental I think need that
Yeah.
we always seek for.
I want to extend this thought
Yeah.
a little. So I have been to two organizations. Prior to this, right now I'm working with Microsoft. Earlier, I was working with OLX. And at OLX, so how I differentiate my experience with these two companies is, in OLX, I wasn't just focused upon design artifacts as a core thing. I was working way beyond it. I mean, how to convey my story to the senior leadership, as we do not have a lot of hierarchy in a very like small design team. Along with that, you also get some opportunities. Like there was a design event also, which me along with the whole team we organized, which is way beyond the core expertise what a designer should do.
Correct.
So as you were talking, like we try to evolve as a designer in multiple domains. Like it is not like if your work is to make Figma designs, then your work is only limited to that. So that kind of experience as a holistic learning actually came from OLX, right? But as I joined Microsoft, I also realized subject matter expertise is also very important. Why? Because for example, there are 10 designers in a team. How will you differentiate this guy is better at video editing and this guy is better at that particular thing, if everyone is doing something in different domains, right? You should be known for your one strength, and you should know every domain, that is for sure, but you should be subject matter expert in one thing definitely. If anyone in the whole organization wants a thing related to video editing, it should be Pramod, who knows video editing, and I know Pramod is best at it and he can deliver this thing. So recall value in terms of person being, end of the day, it is about you selling your expertise into the market, right? Irrespective agency or
we have to propose that.
yes, it is either general physician or if you are having a heart attack, you will not go to a general physician. You will go to a person who's specialist, right? So with coming to that, as we start with the journey, like as I started, I'm really glad, like my journey actually started with OLX. Why? Because I could make progress in different directions, and then I get to choose which direction is giving me joy. And now that I'm at Microsoft, I know this is where I want to develop my strength in. I should be known for this particular specific skill, and doesn't mean I will stop learning in other domain. But I know if you are being recalled for a particular thing, so I think no better than that.
Yeah, totally second that. Like
Yeah.
that's why we say like nowadays the designer who get hired, they should be having T-shaped or Y-shaped learning.
Yeah.
You should be having a domain expertise into a one particular thing, but you should be having a vertical or broader understanding of whole design,
Right.
how psychology work. Like
Right.
design as a profession, you cannot have it in isolation.
Yeah.
You cannot be a good designer if you don't understand how human work.
Right.
You just cannot be a good designer just after having a good understanding of Figma. You need to be understand like how we behave, how
Right.
things are happening. You need to understand. You need to observe a lot more things than you actually think. And I think once you have the clarity of like what you need to learn for, or maybe what you need to maybe go out and seek, then only I think you can become a good designer. And I think nowadays there's a wrong notion around this. Like if you just understand few UX laws, or maybe you even remember the name and you know how to use Figma, or maybe some couple of application or platforms, you are a good designer. That's not how it works. Like he mentioned, he first explored everything, then he kind of doubled down on one particular thing, and that's how he's kind of excelled in his career and got into Microsoft and stuff like that. In the early stage, people should be exploring each and everything. That's what I personally believe.
Yeah.
Because you cannot be certain about one particular thing. Like though the whole societal pressure, everything is kind of set up in a way that you need to go to complete your 12, then you need to get into some BTech or maybe some common graduation stuff. Then you maybe get into maybe something engineering, software engineering, stuff like that. But you're not exploring anything else, and which has a huge potential. Same goes with designers also. There's a lot of huge potential in animation. There's a lot of huge potential
in every aspect of it.
Every aspect of it. It's not just like creating good layout and delivering it to the tester or developer and getting the stuff done, or maybe delivering it to PMs, right?
Correct. I think that's true. 100% I agree on that, because even in our studio culture, the way we have treated the thing is like initially we give a lot of projects where they can explore themselves in multiple ways, so that they first know where they are fitting. What happened most of the time when the new graduate comes from the college, they have some understanding of design, but still they have not experienced it in a practical way. So once they work on one particular thing and then another thing and another thing, then it's give a clarity ki where they have narrow down themselves to get finding that niche for them, to grow their career. I think, I agree with both of you on this particular thing, because, at the end of the day, they have to find the right design stream for themselves to grow and flourish in the one direction.
On top of it, like you mentioned one more thing, like how we are convincing the management or maybe even the peers, right?
Yeah.
That's where the soft skill and the comprehension comes in. And most of us kind of lack that. Like even today, I believe even like the people I interact with, they kind of have like everyone is kind of underconfident in a way that they couldn't explain themselves, like what they like, what is not something that they are not understanding in particular project or particular brief. On top of it, like how like they convince people, negotiate with people in terms of whatever problem statement they solved, whatever solution they came up with. So that's also something that people should be focusing on a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think, Yogesh?
I think you can give that
Yeah.
different way altogether.
Yeah. So it's not a different way. It is in line with what Anshul is saying. So I am just extending that thought. Like I think I'm saying this more from the perspective of corporate. Okay. So what I've seen is whenever you design something, there are 3 stages of design. One is whenever you start a problem, it is about problem solving, right? You are given a problem, then you get into the stage of problem solving. Then as soon as you get a click you have solved the problem, and these screens, these 5 steps, as soon as you do that, it would be a smoother onboarding experience. Then you get on to making artifacts, right?
Correct.
Now, these 2 stages apparently in corporate is very quick. Okay. Now, I would say 90% of my energy goes into negotiating or convincing. This is what I want for my customers. Then there is a pushback from developers saying that this is not possible in this time frame. We'll do this, but this is not possible. So my 90% of my energy goes into negotiating. My work as a designer is solved by these 2 first steps, which is like problem solving and making artifacts. In my head, I am already a designer by now. But I think your skill set goes beyond it. Your 90% of your task is convincing stakeholders. And you, like as a designer, you are advocating your users. And PMs are advocating money.
Business.
They want to generate money.
Correct.
You cannot make an experience which is just based upon advocating users. ऐसा नहीं आएगा तो business नहीं है.
नहीं होगा.
Yeah.
और अगर business है और experience बहुत गंदा है तो so I think as a designer you Anshul, you must be knowing about this notion. Like earlier, even right now I don't know if IRCTC is making like if you want to book a ticket on IRCTC, how difficult it is, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm sure they are generating a lot of revenue, but experience is not good.
Correct.
And then there is experience with any of the third-party tools like MakeMyTrip or anywhere. Yeah. It is super easy to do it, right? And I'm sure they are also making money. So this is the sweet spot. But 90% energy which goes into negotiation is the skill which no education will tell. It is all with experience which you will be getting. How you will be advocating that experience, which is the things which are non-negotiable at all. I will not budge from here. And which are the things which I can negotiate right now, but I want this to be rolled out in the next 3 months. How you negotiate on that front is the kind of skills which every designer will mature and should be progressing towards. And I think in terms of hierarchy also, if you start as a UX designer 1, 2, senior, I think solutioning there is not much of a difference, to be honest. Whereas differences in thinking from the bird eye view, things which are more profitable for the business, plus planning better. So wo hierarchy mein, that is the only difference which I see.
Correct.
Whereas whenever there is a brainstorming, it is not like only the lead designer would be doing the brainstorming. It is
Everyone.
rather I think interns who are there in the company, they give the freshest perspective and which is very unique. And that are being taken to.
Collectively, it has to be. It should be more inclusive.
Exactly.
Rather than just
So my
one
point
individual.
is like negotiation skills is I consider it as a uniquest and like strongest skill a designer or irrespective any professional should have in a corporate. Do you have to
agree?
With negotiation, there should be some storytelling as well. Because negotiation, if you see on a very plain language, it's more like how you are convincing the other guy that this is something that
So that's not negotiation. This is not the right definition of negotiation.
The storytelling is a subset of negotiation. A part of negotiation is storytelling. A part of negotiation can be expressed at other things also.
Yeah, you can say so. So why storytelling is coming into the picture? So let's suppose we worked on a couple of projects, right? How do you convince the client that whatever you came up with is the best solution for them? Whatever you kind of suggesting them, it's going to bring value from a brand's perspective, and even it will give you more value from in terms of numbers as well. Because there are always 2 aspects of it. One is like what your brand is speaking to the user. Another is like what user is kind of paying back to the brand, which they'll eventually make them money. So there's always 2 sides of the kind of when you talk about negotiation or maybe convincing the client. And you need to be very much sure about like whatever brief you get, whatever problem or whatever problem statement you got eventually, and your solution should align But on top of it, it should not be a very straightforward solution. It should be something which has depth, which has thought behind it. Whenever you go with just a straightforward solution, client will always be like, "ये तो मैं भी कर सकता था," right? But when you say कि like this, I have done this a straightforward thing, but I thought something this, then I got into this.
So when you go with the thought and then the solution, then
when you
make,
go with a backstory, storytelling kind of a stuff, then I think negotiation becomes easy. You can easily convince them ki like this is the right thing for you. It will eventually kind of portray the brand value what you are trying to convey to the users, and that makes your job easier, right? And as a designer, if you don't have it, it doesn't matter how beautiful you make things, how how you improve the user experience, you can never sell it to the guy who's going to take it forward, maybe get it developed.
Most of the time, what happens for customer is a design only. Unless until we don't express the design in a proper way so that customer can conceive that design so that he can push it forward. And this is an art of negotiation, I can say, in a way. And one thing is also very important when it comes to negotiation is that every customer is different. Every stakeholders are different. Sometimes what happen in enterprise application, the person who is taking decision, they even don't understand the design. So when you go to them and you start selling design, it does not work in that manner. In that case, you have to give more values to from a direction, give how it's going to help the business as a whole. It should be more on the direction of business experience rather than design.
That's the hardest and the easiest thing, I would say. Like if the other guy doesn't understand the design, but you are very much confident about your design, you know how to kind of convince the guy, then it becomes easy. But when you don't know your own design, then you cannot convince anyone.
So if you make a dabba, then you cannot express
you cannot do that. So from where do you come up with these stories? You come up with these stories by observing around it, just not by studying design. Design is something that they will tell you like, you can have these boxes, you could have these grid system and stuff like that. But when you talk about stories come from different art. That's why when I said that art and design are not different, you learn a lot from literature, you learn a lot from art, you learn a lot from human behavior also.
Yes.
And on top of it, you can even maybe retrospect and understand like whatever you created, how will you perceive it? So there are always two angles to it. When you created something, if you just immediately after creating, you kind of take your opinion, you will say this is the best thing. Sleep on it, give it some time. Let's discuss this next morning. Now when you see it, then next morning you will start finding flaws. And that's how you kind of maybe improvise and think from the different perspective, and like that's coming from very personal opinion. So what I liked last night, I might not like next morning. So
because you are influenced with the environment and so many different parameters.
I might have read something, I might have seen something, I might have gone through some series on OTT or anything, right? Because of which I think that this could have been better. I'm sure like you must have also had this kind of feeling.
I think if this feeling is coming even after a day, that means you are a qualified designer.
Oh God.
I mean, if you are ever satisfied with your design, I think I don't recall any designer being at that stage, to be honest. One of the greatest example is my ongoing portfolio project. It has been ongoing since many years. And one day one day I think it is the best. Another day I think it is the worst I've seen. So I definitely second that thought. But I also want to add something regarding a stakeholder who doesn't understand design. And I think there is very interesting opportunity when you get to interact with this person. First of all, UX design as a field, if we take a step back, is not very old thing, right? Right now, like it started with big tech companies being adopting UX designers. Now every company has started hiring UX designers. But the thing is, the not trust, but what exactly values a UX designer brings, I'm sure at least 70 to 80% of the decision makers of whom to hire, people do not have,
Correct. Very true.
right? And if you are not convinced on that front, even if you hire people, you will be hiring for very minute tweaks in the design. For example, ये button change कर दो, इससे ये हो रहा है वगैरह वगैरह. But role of a designer is way beyond that.
Correct.
Now imagine a situation, a person is hiring you with no expectation at all, just to show on paper, I have a UX designer in my team and who has passed this particular design. I think the first stage is to winning the trust. Like, do not only just do things which are being asked you to do. You go yourself on your own route. So what I say is there are 3 types of project which you do in an organization. One is improve. Not improve. One is fix. Second one is improve. And third one is ignite. Fix is things which the leadership who is not trusting you right now but has hired you, that kind of projects. Improve is something which you have seen are flaws in user experience and you try to fix it. Nobody has asked you to do that, but you have taken the initiative and it will not require a lot of time, maybe a few days, and you are good with that. And third one is ignite. Ignite is something no one is even thinking of that particular project. Imagine, let's go back to the example of booking a train ticket. Right now also I want to go to a website and I want to enter the location from where I'm traveling to where I'm traveling, date, then I'm seeing the prices and so forth. What if this whole experience is just vernacular, right? I'm sure these kind of solutions have come in with the coming of GPT and all, right? But all I'm saying is these kind of projects which nobody is thinking of, and you try to push this project through the leadership. This point in time, that person who has hired you transitions from not trusting you to let's give it a try. Now the negotiation skills come in, I think. Like storytelling exactly, how exactly. And you have to convince him, like, I'm not taking away the time you have hired me for, but this is an initiative which I am doing on my behalf. I just need your support with this thing. And as soon as, and I think around 60% of your energy should be going towards Ignite project. And the intent of doing 60% Ignite project is getting the seat on the table. What I mean by that is like decision making with respect to, like, it shouldn't be on a table when only project managers, only business leads are there on the table and they are taking decision about this needs to be rolled out. No, it should be designer as well.
Correct.
They should also be the part of the negotiation, not negotiation, but rather the discussion. That is a success of a UX designer. Like, you have to grow from that stage to that stage wherein you get a seat on the table.
Correct.
And I think the perfect, I would say, rush of being a UX designer comes when you get a seat on the table.
Yep, I think so. So from the same perspective, what happened in many different design studios, not only design studio, most of the, designer consumed in IT companies nowadays. When you look into the whole the structure of how IT company works and how studio works. So most of the designers are now getting consumed in IT company, and the way the IT company works is little different than the way most of the creative agency work. So there is a cultural difference, I can say like that. And what happened in this situation, that designer working in IT company, they just work like a coder. I'm not saying that coding work is bad or good, but their approach are different and the designer's approach are different. And most of the people who are working as a designer in IT company, they still get into the same process of development. ये कर दो, यहाँ color change कर दो, इसको यहाँ ऊपर कर दो, इसको एक नीचे कर दो, things like that. What you guys are saying right now is designer has to play a bigger role than that, where the decision making capability, maybe they have it in terms of what has to be done and what not has to be done, like that. I'm not talking about decision making from the larger perspective, but the work which they are doing, they can take the decision on those design. But at same point of time, a lot of designer does not get such kind of exposure, even
Yeah.
though they have lot
True.
of knowledge. They might have done some previous research, they might have some good educational background, but when they consumed in the industry, they don't get such kind of exposure because of the company structure or the policy or
Culture,
whatever it
maybe.
is, or
Yeah.
culture. So how those things can be aligned for the designer, and what kind of suggestion you can give it to those companies who are actually consuming designer in their organization?
So on the similar line, so one could be the culture, another could be the confidence in designer itself. Like Yogesh talked about, like fixing things, improving things, and igniting things, right? Even designer have that kind of understanding ki, like this will ignite something. He won't come up and talk to the peer or maybe the immediate senior, because he might think that this is something just shitty idea. I think this can only come from the open conversations. I think within team, if you kind of bring that culture within the team where anyone can come up with anything, and you are still kind of entertaining and being same guy, same energetic guy, and responding with the same kind of enthusiasm, I think then only you can kind of push this a lot. But this doesn't happen in business setup, because no one wants to waste time. People who are kind of sitting on top, they are not enthusiastic enough to maybe take up or maybe have these kind of discussion. At least majority are not. There are some people like Yogesh, Atul also seems like a fun guy who can actually have these kind of conversations. But majority of the spaces, you don't find these guys. These guys are just there to work and uh, maybe just take care of what they are kind of asked to do and stuff like that. So what I feel, creativity will flow when you'll have the freedom. That's the must, right? And in the studios, in the agencies, and even when you kind of hop on one project to another, even being an independent designer, the creativity level is way too high. No one can snatch that away from you, basically. So I personally believe, if you like, you need to understand, you want to be a creative designer or you want to be a designer who is just kind of solving problems, straightforward problems. I won't say straightforward, but again, problems that, like he said,
Solving some purpose.
yeah. So that creativity along with art and stuff like that, you need to get, that will come up with freedom only. You cannot be caged and asked to fly. That's the thing with this creativity and coming up with all sort of things. But again, talking on the similar lines, what Yogesh mentioned, there could be designer who can bring change into these MNCs as well, because they
Someone has to
already
take
have
the
their
lead.
constraint. You cannot do things out of the box. They already have their guideline. They cannot do any random
Yes.
stuff. They cannot go to extremes. They have their limitation.
Set of
Set of
presets are
guidelines.
there.
Yeah. But again, with that being said, this would be very paradoxical to say. So, like, creativity is something when you are kind of caged, right? You cannot be creative if you don't have constraint. If you have whole world, you cannot be creative. You have to put constraint, then only you can be creative.
focused.
And you can think out of the box, and you can come up with something like unique or something which no one has ever thought of. So creativity is kind of always bound by the constraint you have on it. So, but those kind of people are rare find. You don't meet them people much. Those people are like the crazy people who kind of get into these companies and maybe change the whole dynamics. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think I picked up one of the point, like thinking out of the box, right? If in your head you are within a box, you cannot think out of the box.
Yeah.
So as you were mentioning, in a big MNC, people are there just to do some pixel changes to elements. It is not the story when the designer was hired. Everyone in their design career aspires to be in MNC, but as soon as they are there in the MNC, after a few weeks, months, or maybe year, they get to a stage when they might have a perspective like you shared, as in designer is just here to do changes, incremental changes kind of thing. Which brings me to the point, if you are not thinking creatively, I'm extending Anshul's thought. So I think it has more to do with things like maybe that designer who has been recently hired tried to think outside of the box. Maybe his idea was shot down for some reason. Maybe it is not matching the business values. Not just values, it is not like effort is to reward ratio. Like maybe the effort is high, but reward is not that much. But a new designer who is coming will not, like he or she is anyway very energetic about I will do this and that wala situation.
Yeah.
We need to understand, so which also brings to the point not just being the right designer but also being the right manager. Manager is always there to advocate your new designs. If manager feels this particular design is good,
Then it moves forward.
maybe it needs a little grooming.
Yeah.
The idea needs a little grooming, but it is good for the masses. Maybe it can make some change to the masses. That is your manager will understand. But as a designer, individual, if you are going to other stakeholders at very early on, your idea might be shot down. Your enthusiasm will shatter. And you will be like, okay, I'm here. I'll just do my work and I'm good. Like he started, like as you said.
I think that is the box you're
Yes.
talking about. Maybe.
Gradually, if you think you are being trapped in a box, then that is a bad situation to be in. You cannot think outside of the box. Right? So,
And I
it
think
is-
most designers don't understand this is happening with them.
yeah.
Yeah, I
They
think
feel
I
that
agree
they're
with
following the right track because their manager is kind of guiding and but they are kind of getting away with what their
what's supposed to
real
be done.
talent is maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So they need to be very much conscious about these things as well.
Right.
Like whatever is happening in the
Correct.
Like as he started with saying that you need to communicate that particular design effectively with the other stakeholders. So I think extending the thought of being the right guide to if you see this kind of design being shared with you, idea being shared with you, irrespective you are manager or just a colleague, you should be willing to join hands with the other designer and help to make it live. Like time to market should be very less. It shouldn't be like I have an idea and I'm trying to implement it and I'm working on it since 1 year. Let's make a MVP and let's try it out. Right? This is like I think if there is a blocker in this particular situation, then that thought can come in. Like I am here just to do pixel kind of a changes.
But I think that's where this whole community thing is coming in.
Yeah.
That's where we all are, kind of coming in and
That is the reason we all are talking
Yeah,
now, that's the
right.
beautiful thing.
like even if your teammate or manager whomsoever you kind of presented your thought and is kind of not willing to move forward with,
Yeah.
at least you can talk to your designer friends, you can
Right.
talk to community.
Right.
Yes.
Even community also we have big shot people, right, who can maybe give different perspective altogether why this
Maybe
should be
different way
doing it.
altogether.
Yeah. I think we should be talking more about design, about thoughts, because what happens when it comes to creativity and solutions, stuff like that, right? It's an idea. It stays in your head because you are not sure about like how people will judge you at the end of the day.
Correct.
And we can say like we can throw any idea to you because maybe some of our ideas, proven to be a good successful solution to something. So we can maybe come up with those random shit and random ideas and we can throw at anyone. But what if it's your first idea? Right? For that first idea to crack, you need to throw at least 100 ideas, right? It's a game of failure. Like
Early you fail, better you succeed. later.
It's a concept in sales. Like the more you fail, the more you grow. So same goes with this also. The more ideas you're gonna fail with, the better idea will eventually come up with. So I think that should be the culture that we should be kind of
Enforcing more.
Yeah.
I think so, because what happened in many cases when you give freedom to the young people more, probably you get a different perspective altogether which you
Yes.
never thought of.
Yes.
And sometimes those perspectives are so unique that when you try to implement all different creative ideas together and form a model out of it, it may work much more better than any other way that we choose for. So giving exposure to all new designers is also equally important in any organization, like Yogesh has said. कि कोई भी मीटिंग हो रहा है something, all designer and other people should be part of it. So they start getting the holistic approach of the problem they are trying to solve. So
on top of it, like, it doesn't matter at where you are at in the hierarchy. You should be kind of respecting everyone's opinion. I'll tell you a very good example of my team itself. So client said something, client kind of mentioned that we could do this in this way. I couldn't kind of imagine it very clearly. My intern, he said we might make something good out of it, like whatever they mentioned. I really had no clue like how we are going to do it or how it's going to end up. The solution he came up with, clients loved it. I won't say I loved it, but it was something aligning with the client's
thought
opinion.
process, yeah.
So client loved it. Then I was like, oh wow, this is crazy shit, right? And that's where I think we should be very much open about everyone's thought within the team. You can give the more experienced nuances to the designer, the new ones, but you can take their creative inputs. You can even take like what could be the new way, which you never did, kind of walked in the past. You might not even do in future. So if new design is kind of going into the new direction, don't stop him.
Correct.
He will come up with something new
Something
for
at least.
like for
Yeah,
sure.
any new thing is new for you, even
Yeah,
though
right.
even though the set is okay, it's new
Yeah.
for you, at least listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just extending his thought, like there is a step in brainstorming which is called as crazy eights, if you know of.
Okay.
I would rather say let's do crazy 16s, not just crazy eights, because the intent of this particular exercise in brainstorming is this is the problem statement given to you, and just do not think logically.
Just think.
You don't have to put in a lot of head saying that this is possible, इस पे पैसा बनेगा नहीं बनेगा types. These kind of thoughts shouldn't be there. Crazy it, be true to the word, and your first 5 ideas will be very plain and simple, overlapping with every other's idea. Everyone would be saying this, right? Whereas your last 3 ideas is going to be maybe unique. And not just, I was saying crazy 16s. I would rather say the first 10 ideas, out of first 10, 8 ideas would be very similar to people you are like around you. And people who are there in the organization for the longer time, they will think in a pattern which has been set. And here is when you get freshest perspective from the freshers, first year or second year or maybe interns. Like he said, an idea from an intern was so good, was appreciated by the client. Client is the user. You are not the user.
Yeah.
But he liked,
Yeah.
right? And if
Customer's customer.
yeah. So end of the day, paisa bana, right? So point is ki you get new ideas and new perspectives, and you should never shove it down. Do not think logically. Think the intent with which that particular person, and you know what, as in I've just been like around 4.5 or 5 years in the while being a UX designer, but I still remember my first or second month of being a UX designer. So I was with the design director, his name is Ankur Sardana, and he was the third designer being hired in the team. I was the second one, and there was one who was already there working on improvemental changes, right? He asked me to come in a meeting room, and he did not block me at all. He said, हमें इस तरीके से ये sell करना है. Come up with new ideas. And my first 2 months, I wanted to make an impact. In my head, it's like, I want to impress this guy. I want to impress this guy. This guy should remember me with the kind of things which I am doing. And let's assume that intern was me, okay? And that idea was being taken to the GM of the company, and he sat in front of me. The GM was there right in front of me, and he asked me to present. And I really had a very strong stage fright. Okay, so here is when negotiation skills also come in, storytelling skills also come in. He said, "Ki tu bindas bol. I'm here to help you out, right?" So as an intern, like it was an internship changed to a job opportunity.
Yeah.
So as an intern, if I get an opportunity like that, getting my work being presented to the GM of the company, see how boosted I would be. Like I will come up with more new ideas.
Yes.
I will be outside of the box. I will never be in the box.
In the box.
And while being outside the box, I will think more outside of the box. Right?
More motivated,
Yes,
energetic.
more energetic. Point is, I want to make an impact.
Yeah.
You cannot restrain a designer with certain thought in the starting itself. Maybe that person is a best designer, but you are not using his or her best design skills in starting itself.
Capabilities.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true, because when we do a project in our studio, I can categorize the project in two different segment.
Mhm.
So, for example, I have an enterprise customer.
Mhm.
I have two different type of enterprise customer. So one enterprise customer, for example, they are into fintech, let's say.
Mhm.
But in the fintech, there is a role of designer that we need to play, and the rest of the other things done by some other people all across that we even don't know who they are, because in normal outsourcing, some team member is from one country, the another one is from different country, and the designer are
True.
from India and things like that. So those kind of setup where you normally don't interact with people so frequently, because every day you have 1 hour call and you have to update everything, and everyone has to update the work they have done. So it's like more monologue kind of work
Mhm.
we do. In that situation, which I believe is the people having a technical capability in terms of 100% expression is required, because you have to present what you have done in that situation. But the designer who has a more technical knowledge, they play a good role in that particular type of customer, right?
For sure.
What do you,
Yeah.
what do you mean by technical knowledge? over
Technical
here?
knowledge in terms of understanding of principle, understanding of theories of design, and then when you express
Just
those
keep it
things
simple.
together.
Like, let's suppose if you're building website, right?
Hmm.
A designer who understands what can be developed, how it can be developed. He might not know the technicalities of how to develop it, but understand this is possible, or maybe this could be possible. If we can go this route, this could be possible. Because when you talk about design is not just a static design we are talking about right here, right now, right? It could be more from the interactivity,
Yeah.
how the user interacts, how things gonna flow, how the animation gonna play,
Yeah.
whether we are going to use GIFs or whether we are going to have the lottie animation stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So if a designer have that kind of understanding, eventually the result would be much better than who just understand design.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's
Pramod
that's the one part of
Yeah.
it. The another type of client which we have is more like a business people.
Huh.
Yeah, so they don't take care about what you're coming up with, but they really see whether you're solving the problem or not, solving the purpose or not the problem. Because every
You can say
businessman
problem also,
yeah,
like when you're kind of dealing with those kind of businessmen, they are more on the sides of like how you're kind of solving their communication problem.
communication.
That's the major issue.
yeah.
Like when you talk about.
So when you're discussing project with them, the kind of information they give it to you is not the same thing which other type of customer they give.
Understand.
So they say something, for example, I want to make this because of this is my purpose. Now you decide what has to be done.
Yeah.
This is a simple statement, and then we have to dig down into every piece, every detail. We have a freedom to explore the market. ये market में क्या चल रहा है, कौन सा product अच्छा है, who are the competitors, what kind of geography that we are targeting, what kind of user we have to narrow our focus on, things like that. So we have to do a lot of research on that, but when we present them, those after the research is basically only the conclusion. Because those kind of people try to understand कि तुमने जो किया उसमें से conclusion क्या निकल के आया, and if it is meaningful, then they appreciate and they take your idea and they move forward.
Yeah.
So in that situation, we looking forward to have a people having more exposure to different kind of capabilities. So where those kind of designer consume more and they perform better in this kind of projects. But when it comes to enterprise, both are enterprise. But when it comes to the technical project where you have to deal with team lead, you have to deal with project manager, you have to deal with other stakeholders of the project, then the technicalities play a major role. And such designers can play better in that particular kind of projects. That's my fundamental understanding of positioning two different type of designers. So what do you think about it from a business
I
point
think
of view?
in from the business point stand, like you need every kind of a designer. A designer who understand tech as well.
Yeah,
A
definitely.
designer who can understand art as well.
Yep.
A designer who might not even design but can understand random other things, how to write the UX copies.
Mhm.
That's also a designer's job, right, nowadays. So from business standpoint, if I try to bifurcate this, it would be very hard. I think I can answer it from the level where you as a designer, how you can go about it. You need to be very much sure about like what you kind of pursue or maybe want to build your strength around. Because as an agency, we need every kind of a designer.
100%.
Even as a
Yeah.
MNC or maybe product company, they need every kind of a designer. They need every type of person who can actually contribute or maybe increase
Mhm.
the value. Right? He mentioned about the like the kind of impact they're going to bring onto the table or maybe onto the project.
Correct.
It's going to be like, if you are a designer, you should be focusing on the basics. On top of it, you need to be focusing on what unique value you can provide.
Mhm.
Tech is one, obviously you can do that, but do you have other understanding of other things, like how you can maybe increase the, maybe how you can maybe come up with the interaction and stuff like that wala stuff. Maybe you don't have the clarity on the tech part, but you might have clarity like this is something that we kind of implemented somewhere, and this is kind of gonna improve the whole overall experience as a whole. Because when you talk about tech also, let's suppose a designer has a tech capability, eventually what he's trying to do is he's trying to optimize the experience only, right? How you can maybe decrease the loading time, how you can maybe take care of the core web vitals and stuff like that. Those things are coming into play when you are kind of focusing on tech part.
Tech part of it, yeah.
When you are kind of focusing on the communication part,
Business part, you can say.
business part, where you want to maybe increase the number or maybe the conversion, then you need to come up with the stuff like where you can actually have the lead magnets,
Yeah.
where there should be CTAs, what should be the communication of the
Correct.
CTAs and stuff like that. You will have copywriters, you will have content writers, but you as a designer should understand what brand is looking for, what they stand for, what user is looking for, and where the gap
Gap
is.
is, yeah.
Right? So again, like I said, you designer can be of multiple type. You need to understand what you are, really
You
look at
which
to-
direction you have to go
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think as a designer, you have multiple direction, and based on your own capability, you can decide your own path. So
Yeah.
if you're having a good logical capability, probably you can get more into the technical part of it.
Hmm.
But if you are more creative and other part, then you can go more on the visual side of it.
I think this comes from the background also. Like
yeah.
I'm an engineer as a background,
Mhm.
right? I pursued engineering. So I think tech is something that I do get a
Always,
bit
yeah.
of it. So that's why I would hang a decent hang of it. Yeah, this is something that we can pull off. This is
Mhm.
something we might not able to pull off, right? I have that kind of understanding.
Yeah.
I might not have a very good understanding of like how well you can, maybe come up with the copies and maybe make it
Yeah,
those,
How to make it more effective by the communication, I guess.
Yeah.
in terms of-
So like with the words, I might lack,
Yeah.
but when it comes to tech and the visual appearance, those are
Those
the things that click with me.
Yeah.
It could be very different for Yogesh also.
Yeah, every individual are different in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
particular point. Yeah. So I'm also like hardcore programmer from like
Ah.
25 years. So I have that technical understanding. But now running a design studio,
Design
it has a
studio.
different experience altogether. So it's like combining everything together and coming up with something new. So it's it's a kind of exposure for me and exploring even right now like how to work better in design the way other people are seeking. As a founder, it's my responsibility to understand the whole market, because what I see right now, the whole space of design globally is like almost $600 billion market,
Okay.
and what we are talking right now more in in India
Yeah.
what we talk more about ki designer kaise bane, acha designer kaise
Hmm.
bane and all. But as a founder, what I see, definitely there is a lot of improvement is required in this particular space. But from a business point of view, we as a studio founder of any studio, we have to look around ki how we can bring more work from outside India, so that the whole community of design can flourish in this space. That's how I see right now, because I see there are a lot of requirement is there in outside India, and we can if the people are good in India, probably a lot of work will come to India to grow the whole community as an business
Yeah.
point of view or materialistic perspective, you can say.
So from that angle, what I feel when you talk about getting design projects from outside of India, like design is always user focused thing, right? When you're getting anything from outside of India, your designer or me as a person or you as a person might not have very good clarity of the user. You might study well, but you will never get into their shoes. Like, at least that's coming from my experience. Like, you can very well understand like how Gujarati guy sitting in Gurgaon, age 25, doing MNC 9 to 5 job might feel, but you will never understand the guy who's sitting in Seattle, what their daily routine is, what they are consuming, and stuff like that. It's very hard to do that kind of research. So when we are kind of getting clients from outside of country, we should be very much aware of like what kind of clients we are dealing with. It
So
should,
you're talking about cultural difference in one
yeah,
perspective.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Cultural differences, difference in like every mindset, like how they behave, behavior stuff, psychological stuff, all kind of comes under this only.
So मजा आया मतलब I think this is going to be very crazy for lot many designer. They will understand कि कैसे कैसे designer को conceive किया जाता है industry में.
We hope. We
Yeah,
hope.
yeah, definitely. At least it gives something to them. They can identify कि हाँ चलो ये ऐसा भी होता है तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं. At least that clue also help lot many designer to identify themselves कि कहाँ they can fit themselves within the organization or within the studio.
Yeah.
I
Or
think-
maybe which direction is right for them.
Yeah, at least they have some perception on it.
Hmm.
And another thing that I personally like to ask you, like, in a way, how community can give more power to designer, because as a Sandskriti community, we are working very hard in order to bring all designers together so that they can help each other to grow themselves, So if you can guide us in some direction can also be a way, or what is your opinion on making the whole community?
So before guiding, I'll maybe talk about like how I grew up as a designer. So from starting, I was isolated.
Mm-hmm.
No one around me was into design. I was also not into design. I was not even aware that I was into design. I'm a self-taught designer, so I was never had this understanding that I'm a designer.
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing things for fun. I was creating poster for fun. I was doing any random stuff on Photoshop for fun. And I was not aware of that I'm a designer. Then slowly things pan out. Like, I got into real stuff. I got into this corporate life where I got into agencies. I created stuff. There also people were not kind of very much open about like how to design, how they design good things, acha design hota bhi kya hai, and stuff like that. If you are not getting any kind of input from anyone, right, you will be trapped in your bubble, right? You will be within yourself. You will be revolving around your thoughts. Whatever you read, whatever you consume, kind of make your mind, right? And you cannot consume a lot. Like, though in this information age you are consuming a lot, but you are consuming garbage.
Mm-hmm.
The real consumption or the real absorption of the ideas or knowledge is only fraction of it, very little of it. Even if you maybe get some informational reels on Instagram, you won't retain it for more than a day or so.
Correct.
You might share it with some of your friends. You might say, look, this is so cool that moon is just this far away from us, but you won't remember it day after tomorrow. And that, I think, is what is happening. We are not doing conscious learning a lot, right? And no one is even telling us that we need to do it because we are maybe addicted or maybe whatever it is, right? It could be anything, right? So like I said, I never had that kind of group where I can have these kind of conversation where I can talk about design, where I can, like, people can empathize with me, where I can say कि like यार दिन के 2 से 4 बजे तो मुझे आइडिया ही नहीं आते हैं. I just feel like sleeping.
खाने के बाद तो नींद आने लग जाती है.
9 से 5 की जॉब है, बट लेकिन 2 से 4 मुझे आइडिया नहीं आते हैं. What I really need to do here, मुझे नहीं समझ आना. मैनेजर तो कल फायर कर देगा. I don't have like anyone to talk about these things, right? And that's where I think community comes in. Like, where you can actually share everything. It's like your partner, girlfriend, whatever you call it, your best buddy, whom you can actually share only this part of your life. Obviously, if you want, you can share your personal life as well. That's totally up to you and the other guy.
The kind of connection you share.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if I can talk to you कि design में मुझे ये problem है, या design में something I found something cool. Today itself, Puneet showed me like Figma got these new cursor. I wasn't aware of it. अब मैं पुनीत के कनेक्शन में ना होता, आई डोंट थिंक सो मुझे कोई और बता रहा है आके, क्योंकि मेरा कोई और दोस्त तो है नहीं जो लाइक दे आर इनटू डिजाइन और मे बी दे आर इनटू दिस स्टफ. आई थिंक दैट्स वेयर द कम्युनिटी कम्स इन. Learning, discussing failures, new opportunities, exposures, and whatnot. The community is only for this only, where you can actually talk about like everything, having a perspective of taking of a longer run perspective kind of a thing. You can even talk about stuff like कि अगर ये नहीं तो क्या, like even design, if this vertical is not working for me, what do you think that gonna work for me? Then
Correct.
you might sit around, brainstorm, yeah, these are the new ideas or new stuff you can particularly do.
Yeah.
Because you never know, you can pivot in your life anytime, right? Even you become the part of the community, you might understand, yeah, जो आप कर रहे हो might not be the thing that excites you to a certain level. You can jump onto the something else that might excite you. So it's always good to have a conversation with the like-minded people, right? That's why we also enjoy it.
Yeah,
Like we came in yesterday and we kept on talking and talking
Yeah.
and talking, and रात
बातें
हो गया,
खत्म ही नहीं हो
हाँ,
रही
5
हैं,
बज
yeah.
गया, 4 बज गया, we never gonna end, right? That was that scenario. And I think that happens with all of our friends also, right? When we kind of talk about different stuff, you time just passes by. Same goes with the community. Like I'm kind of vibing with this guy. I am pretty much sure after this podcast I'm gonna go and sit with him and maybe talk some different
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and we're gonna talk a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why I think
The
community gonna
the community can help in
Yeah.
that direction to make a good connection, and you can spend time with them and learn from each other and helping each other to grow in a way.
If this wasn't the scenario, I wouldn't have met him. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have known how Yogesh is thinking, or like we are kind of vibing with these stuffs. Even same goes with Puneet also. Like अगर meetups नहीं हो रहे थे और community नहीं हो रहा था, like we couldn't have actually get in touch with
Yeah.
each other and talk about different stuff, right?
Correct.
I think
Very
that's
true.
where the community is kind of coming up. Like we have a lot of familiar faces also. So people, when they see you in person, they kind of they glow up. They say, oh wow, you remember me? Yeah, I remember you. And that's a totally different what do you call it? Dopamine hit, or
Yeah.
whatever you say it, right?
Sharing the energies,
Yeah.
not the talks.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
share the energy together, like vibing together with the tribe.
I think big companies also are kind of catching up with these things, and they have their own community within the company. How is it?
Yeah, so community within Microsoft. You're saying?
Yeah.
I think it's really good within companies as well. How exactly I should say? So there are different groups of people who have made their own niche into, like, on monthly basis. We are going to talk about this. For example, maybe about next billion users who, like, tier 2, tier 3 city के लिए क्या करना है. This is one set of group who basically keeps us updated about what other things happening, right? Within design community itself, we have activities which are not related to design, but yet we like to do it together. One of them is improv. Improv is something you do not have to come planned, and I think here is where designer really excels in. Like, improv is basically, if I have to say it, like, you do not have to come planned. I'll just give you a scenario. You are probably the teacher. We both are students. We both are best friends. By the way, you said Puneet is your best friend, but I'm also your best friend now. Okay, so
Puneet watching, we all are friends.
yeah, yeah. So I think the energy actually derives from the fact that we all are designers, and probably design is just one thing that can connect us together.
Yeah.
There can multiple other things. For example, I am seeing in this podcast your inclination towards business. You're talking a lot about design plus business. Now within that itself, we have a niche. Similarly, in enterprise as well, in Microsoft, so we have communities which just initiative. Like, if you want to join in the community, you can. They do some activities and things like that, which happens. And having said that about Sanskriti also, I would like to say that I have seen a lot of communities already which are working towards the same motive, because I would say designer community in all is not that big, to be honest. There is not a day, like, there isn't a day which goes by wherein I do not come across with a designer with whom I did not even share numbers with, but we just cross paths. like कैसा है, अरे कहाँ था, वैसा types.
Yeah.
So it is not that big of a community, to be honest. So it is very close knit, right? Even if you change your company, you will encounter one or two person who was there in your earlier organization. Now he is here. You will vibe on different level.
Correct.
Right. So I think initiative wise, I would say if the community is so small, it is very like making a community in this particular thing will help a lot of people immediately. Like any small thing done in this community will impact a lot of people.
Correct. That's
Right?
the power of it.
Yeah, that's the power of it. And maybe the mentorship, right? As I said in the earlier podcast, like UX design as a field is not very old, right? And people have their own perspectives. Now, companies are trying to hire more UX designers. Now, demand supply ka problem hai, right?
Correct.
Whereas I would say there are a lot of UX designer right now, but जो skillful चाहिए, that is needed. अभी उसमें time लग रहा है.
Yeah, there is a gap.
And जो वो skill upskill करना चाह रहे हैं, they need proper guidance. And I think communities like these is something which helps them get the reality of things very quickly, diverse, मतलब update क्या चल रहा है वगैरह वगैरह. I'll try to have this analogy with a observation which I have seen. If there is something which parents tells you to do, you will not do it. You will say that कि मैं ये क्यों करूँ, मेरा तो different thought है. वही same thought अगर कोई community में कोई बंदा कर रहा हो and वो person says कि this is something, this is how it has helped, it will like it will push your boundaries way further. So parents' role is something like you can learn somewhere by paying some money, course and all. I just feel कि ऐसा करने से it becomes a little transactional, right? But in a community, you are free to ask whatever you want to. You are free to ask for the guidance. Even if you don't ask, if you are just the third person in that community, you're just observing. That in itself is a very good help to a designer who is budding right now, who is growing right now. And as he has said, on daily basis we learn a lot of things. Distance between here to moon is not something which we can know in the second day. But I would say it is. I've seen a meme just yesterday कि एग्जाम में हम पढ़ते इतना है, एग्जाम में याद हमें इतना रहता है, हम लिखते इतना है और मार्क्स हमारे इतने आते हैं, राइट? तो जो हमारे इतने मार्क्स आते हैं वो हमें याद रहता है, मतलब वो मार्क्स जितने आ रहे हैं वो दैट इज अ डिजर्वेंट ऑफ कितना हमें याद रहता है. बट अगर वो कंटेंट हम रोज कम्युनिटी के जरिए वी आर एब्जॉर्बिंग दैट ऑन डेली बेसिस, सो आई थिंक वो जो स्मॉल है वो बड़ा होता रहेगा. एंड इट इज योर लर्निंग वुड बी वे बियॉन्ड अ डिजाइनर, अब लाइक व्हिच इज रिलेटेड टू वेयर वी आर हेडिंग टुवर्ड्स as trends कह लो या जो भी कह लो, it helps a lot. So kudos for the community building.
Thank you. You are motivating us. So more and more we actually communicate with people, through the community, because we are organizing lot of activities for the designer, and it's like non-profitable, as you also know that. And
Right.
we want to say people also that this is non-profitable community, and we really want to grow design community in India, not even India, like the whole global level. And we are working so hard in that particular process. Like we learn a lot from many different people, because when you call some designer कि भाई meetup 2.2 अभी हमारा आ रहा है, जो क्या हो रहा है अभी, and when we call people to be part of this जो meetup में जब हम उनको बुलाते हैं, and then when we call them, so what happened is that कि कि अरे क्या कराओगे आप, इसमें क्या है क्या नहीं है, they ask lot of questions. But sometimes what I feel is that कि अगर कोई gathering हो रहा है जहाँ पे आपके टाइप के लोग ही आ रहे हैं, so you don't need to ask question, you just have to go there. That's what I feel personally.
I think that's what we all did, right?
Yeah.
We didn't even ask anything.
Right, because you understand कि once we meet with lot many designer, you're going to learn a lot that you even don't know what's gonna your take from that meetup itself, right? So why people are thinking so much about design कि भाई इसमें ऐसे घुसे या नहीं घुसे, करे या नहीं करे, मतलब मुझे वो perspective कभी समझ में नहीं आया. But I think that mindset is now changing gradually. People are giving more value to the design and जैसे हमने पहली बार जब कम्युनिटी का इनिशिएटिव लिया था, I made it like 100% free, and then I got like 300-400 designers in one roof. But the kind of design people came in, the quality of conversation was not good. Then gradually we learned from it कि नहीं, अभी let's put some ticket on it so that at least we'll get some filter people who can give us a better insight on that. Then we have done that, and then we learned from that process कि नहीं, कुछ ticket होना चाहिए so that people who are serious can be part of the conversation and all. So what is your perspective on that? Like how we can grow the community, because we want to give everything for free, but some way we cannot do that, because of the quality constraint, or maybe because of many different other point of view. I can say that.
On this, I think we can relate this to one thing, like when engineering was hot, everyone was doing engineering, right? Because it is hot. You will get good money at the end of the day. I think same is happening with the design industry also. Design is kind of getting hotter day by day, right?
Yeah.
Design is something
It
that
is going to be a
everyone-
very big market.
yeah, eventually it's going to, like, you need a lot of designers to take care of these many application, even the products, even the physical products coming in, right? So you need designers. You need designer at every cost, and people are seeing that कि हाँ, design में जाने में there is growth, there is learning, there is kind of money also into it. But after getting into that, they might not they might feel like this is not something that we should be getting into. Like, again, personal example, I got into engineering. That's not my cup of tea. If you send me into any of the tech meetup or kind of a thing, I will be that guy who will be asking stupidest question, right? So again, coming back to your question, right? Like whether we should kind of charge or whether we should kind of make it free. I think on top of it, whether thinking about charging or not, we should be thinking what value we are at the end of the kind of
that is
providing
true.
to
That is the end of the
designer.
day. That's the purpose.
Yeah, there will be people who might not be completely interested into what we are trying to provide, or maybe whatever we are trying to convey, but at least we should be focusing on the genuine ones, right? And how we can actually provide value to them.
Yeah.
It should not be like we are saying that it's going to be around $500 ka ticket hoga, but you will only going to get a couple of talks. You might not even extract anything out of it, but you have to pay this much and you have to join. So we need to be very much thoughtful about like what we are providing, because I feel the smartest guy, or maybe the people who are like, people are smart enough, right? They very well understand like where they are going to get value, how they are going to get value. Even if they will network with certain people, they will get value. They will maybe connect with or maybe maybe exchange numbers, and they will get value eventually, right? So I think that's also something that value people are looking for. And I think smart people are very well open about paying $500. It's just like दो तीन burgers ही तो हैं. You will kind of accumulate 500 rupees, right? I think everyone have this kind of money with them where they can pay, and they can maybe join a meetup like this where you eventually get value. But the bigger question is, are we providing value or not?
Not true.
Yeah, that should be the question, rather than being the key, like whether the ticket size should be zero or not. Because at the end of the day, if we want to sustain, there is a financial aspect of
100%.
it, business aspect of it, right? If we want to sustain, and if we want to keep on doing this on regular basis to uplift the design as a whole in the country, we need funds, right?
Correct.
Even if we are not making profit, we at least need funds so that we can
It can execute in a bigger way or in a different way.
So we need to be smart enough. So again, the value proposition should be so high that people are ready to come to the maybe 2.3, 2.4, 3, 4, 5, 10. And you can even work upon the ticket size and stuff like that. I think people will be very much open about paying anything if they had a very good experience like in the last meetup.
Yeah, true. So we are trying hard to do that. Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
So by the way, I think you are eating very expensive burgers. But anyway, so I have a perspective to it. So when Google Plays came in, they were giving away 51 rupees on every download. It was for just so that people can see how good our experience is, and they can adapt to it. So the first season, what you did for free was something to tell. Like I did not attend the first season of the Sandskriti event, but if that delivered value for free, I think people know what you are giving right now. That has been proved, right?
Correct.
And similarly, there's a saying that if you are good at something, never do it for free, right? So for first time, what you did was to prove this is something which we have done. But for second on, ideology should be very much like Apple. I know I am expensive, but I am worth it, kind of a thing. If you are bringing in people who are delivering value, or the content which is delivering value, then I think 500 rupees or 1000 rupees, or I don't know what amount, that amount is not an amount which is useful for you, but that amount is something which they are paying for the seriousness. People who are going to come in, they are going to come in with an agenda to interact with people, and they will be getting something in return, which is really a value which is for seriousness. It is not something which will help you in doing the operational thing. 500 rupees is, I don't think, will help you set up the whole stage. Not just 500 rupees, like multiplying with 200, 300 people. But if you have some skin in the game, I think quality people will come in. And you also started with thing like, right now, people are very dicey about getting into design as a field, right? I think you started with that.
Yes.
I think that was the situation when, I think 2 to 3 years back. Reason for that is decision makers for the career choice wasn't that student itself. Decision maker was parents. And parents
Or the counselors.
And those decision makers do not know what UX design is. Even now,
Awareness is not
yes,
there.
even now, during Diwali time, whenever at my home, people come in, dad के कोई दोस्त वगैरह आते हैं, आपका बेटा क्या करता है? I say UX design. वो क्या होता है? But like I understand who the audience is. कई बार मैं ऐसे बोलता हूँ कि मैं बस मैं इंजीनियर हूँ डिजिटल प्रोडक्ट का, मैं बोल देता हूँ. कभी मैं ये बोल देता हूँ कि मैं ग्राफिक डिजाइनर हूँ. Basis upon audience. So those were the decision makers. But now people have realized what UX design will do, like what exactly that entails in the career, basically. So now the seriousness is there. Us time pe it wasn't there, right? So that is.
Yeah, it's changing day by day, and it's gonna change.
It is maturing, for
it
sure.
is getting maturing. Yeah. It is in the stage of that. Yeah. True.
And to be honest, like personally, I feel everyone is a UX designer in daily life. It is just a title which we have added.
Correct.
Like if you have noticed, simple things like McDonald's के जो वो होता है lid होता है Coke का, उसमें there is a very minute वो चीज की ये diet Coke है या कुछ है, उसके लिए there is a pressing, if you have paid attention to that. So how they have distinct हर जो vessel है जिसमें वो pour करते हैं, every that the design of every vessel is same. They are fulfilling 10 minute में पता नहीं कितने 100 orders from a single store, right? How will they identify कि ये order number का है, right? If he is ordering diet Pepsi, right, and I am ordering Fanta, right? तो उस lid में you can see ऊपर these are the different flavors which are written on the lid itself. They press that particular thing and give it to the audience, मतलब who has ordered something. It helps in distinguishing किसने क्या order करा है. Simple. And I saw this thing not being used in one of the McDonald's. If you see from the eye of a normal person, you anyway identify a lot of problems. It's just that ki, as a designer, you think beyond just problem. You immediately think, how can I solve this? But identifying problem, I think, is the 80% of their task. Solution तो ऐसे दिमाग में आने लग जाते हैं,
करेक्ट,
है ना, एकदम से हर कोई सॉल्व करने लग जाता है. घर पे ट्यूबलाइट खराब होगी, क्या कैसे करें, इसमें कैसे लटकाएं, हर कोई सोचता है.
राइट.
सो आई थिंक हर कोई डिजाइनर है टू एन एक्सटेंट.
या डिजाइनर तो सबके अंदर है.
सो कम्युनिटी अभी स्ट्रॉन्ग, छोटी नहीं रहेगी. आई थिंक और एक्सटेंड हो जाएगी. हो सकता है डॉक्टर्स भी आ जाए नेक्स्ट वाले में.
नहीं, the way you are contributing to the whole community, I really loved it. आपसे बात करके भी ऐसा मजा आता है ना. Every time when we talk, we talk about new topic. अभी हम आधे घंटे बाद कुछ बात करेंगे तो कुछ नया ही टॉपिक होगा. And we are continuously sharing lot of information, not only information but the experiences. I can say like that. And ये podcast so anyways is the one way to interact with the audience. But we are going to come up with many different podcasts and many different activities that we do it for the community. I wish that this community can also give you a lot of knowledgeable information to you, or you can say, let's see कैसे आगे जाता है सब कुछ. But thank you so much for coming to this podcast, and it's really helpful for many different perspective for me personally, because the way you are talking about the agencies, the way you are talking about the corporate culture and the delivery system in many different corporate product delivery process, things like that. It's giving me a different kind of perspective to me, because as a founder I see things in a different way, because I have to deliver a lot of other things. So मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि this podcast is going to give me a lot of insight to manage my things, and I think it's going to be helpful for you as well. So we'll continue recording more podcasts with you.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for
so
having
much.
us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pramod, for giving us the opportunity to share our perspective, and hope this helps the audience.
I think अभी तो चलता रहेगा कुछ ना कुछ.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have one small appreciation from the community.
Thank you.
So we'll continue making more podcasts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
By the way, this is my first podcast, and
Same.
in the
Oh,
first
really?
podcast, same,
Same.
best friends. Huh?
पर ऐसा लग नहीं रहा था podcast पहला है ये.
So
We come prepared.
this is really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and
So is this a real one?
this is a real one. You can plug in.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So now we need a.
I'll give you the cable.
Next time when you invite us, we'll bring this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
इसमें करेंगे podcast.
Yeah.
So cool.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Okay.